Imagine this. You're on a plane. Suddenly turbulence hits. The aircraft shakes violently. Your heart pounds. You glance at the flight attendants. One is smiling, calmly continuing their routine. The other looks panicked, gripping their seat. Who do you trust more? In moments of uncertainty, we look for signals. We don't just follow orders, we follow emotions. When leaders panic, teams crumble. But when leaders remain calm, their teams find strength. Because calm isn't just a state of mind, it's contagious. And great leaders understand that pressure isn't the enemy, it's the test. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the mood without anyone saying a word? Maybe there was tension in the air, an unspoken heaviness that made your chest tighten. Or maybe there was an energy, a buzz that lifted your spirits before you even knew why. That's because emotions aren't just things we feel internally, they are signals we send out, and those signals are absorbed by the people around us. This is why great leaders understand that their emotional state is never just their own. It's spread. Think about a time when you've worked under someone who was constantly stressed. Maybe they snapped at small mistakes, paced the room anxiously, or spoke in a rushed, frantic tone. Even if they never directly said, "I'm overwhelmed," you felt it. And without realizing it, you likely started to absorb that same anxiety. Maybe your hands got clammy, your heart beat a little faster, your mind raced with worry. What if I mess up? What if I disappoint them? That leader's stress became your stress. Their tension became your tension. Now think about the opposite. A leader who stays calm, even when everything around them is chaotic. They speak in a steady voice. They listen before they react. They take a deep breath before making a decision. Just being around them makes you feel more in control. Their calm doesn't just exist within them, it radiates outward, and suddenly you feel calmer too. This isn't just a theory, it's biology. Our brains are wired with mirror neurons, cells designed to help us connect with others by reflecting their emotions. It's why we instinctively smile when someone smiles at us. It's why we feel uneasy when someone is visibly nervous. We don't just process emotions cognitively, we feel them as if they are our own. Leaders, whether they realize it or not, become emotional compasses for their teams. When they exude confidence and steadiness, their teams find reassurance. When they radiate panic, their teams feel destabilized. And this applies to every type of leadership: a CEO facing a market downturn, a coach guiding a team through a losing season, a parent navigating a family crisis. The way they carry themselves, the emotions they project, directly shape how others respond. Emotions are contagious, and great leaders make sure they're spreading the right ones. Anyone can lead when things are easy, when the plan is working, when the numbers look good, when the team is in sync. Leadership feels natural, it feels rewarding. But leadership isn't tested in moments of ease. It's tested in moments of crisis. Because pressure doesn't just challenge a leader, it reveals them. Think about a ship in calm waters. The captain stands at the helm giving orders, maintaining course. The crew follows along without question. The journey is smooth. Now imagine that same ship in the middle of a storm. Violent waves crashing against its side, the wind howling, water pouring onto the deck. In that moment, the captain's true leadership isn't just important, it's everything. If they panic, the crew panics. If they freeze, the crew is left without direction. But if they remain steady, if they take control with confidence, the crew will follow. Because when things go wrong, people don't look for rank, they look for reassurance. Pressure strips away titles, positions, and resumes. It doesn't care about past achievements or how charismatic someone is in a boardroom. It doesn't care how many leadership books someone has read or how impressive their credentials may seem. Pressure forces people to show their true nature. It exposes who rises and who collapses, who takes responsibility and who places blame, who keeps their team focused and who lets stress dictate their actions. Great leaders don't just survive pressure, they step into it. They don't avoid difficult moments, they recognize them as opportunities to define who they are. Look at the leaders we admire most. The ones who made history. They weren't the ones who thrived in comfort. They were the ones who stood firm when everything was falling apart. Think about the moments in your own life when you felt the most pressure. Maybe it was a crisis at work, a sudden failure, a moment when everything seemed to be on your shoulders. How did you respond? Did you let fear take over? Did you react without thinking? Or did you take a breath, ground yourself, and move forward with intention? This is why leadership isn't about power, it's about responsibility. A leader's job isn't to absorb pressure and let it break them. It's to absorb pressure and transform it into clarity, direction, and stability for those around them. Athletes know this better than anyone. In the final moments of a championship game, with the clock winding down and the team depending on them, they either fold under the weight of expectation or rise to the occasion. The great ones, the ones we remember, are the ones who step up. They want the ball in their hands. They want to be in the arena when everything is on the line. Not because they aren't feeling pressure, but because they've trained themselves to respond to it with discipline, not fear. Business leaders, military commanders, first responders, parents. Everyone who carries the weight of responsibility knows that pressure isn't something to run from, it's something to harness. The way a leader handles pressure sets the tone for everyone around them. It determines whether a team moves forward with confidence or spirals into doubt. Some leaders crack under the weight. Some leaders let stress dictate their behavior, making reckless choices, snapping at their teams, or shutting down altogether. But the best leaders, they stay composed. They acknowledge the difficulty but refuse to let it control them. They remind their teams through their words, their actions, and most importantly, their presence, that they can get through anything. Because pressure doesn't create great leaders, it reveals them. There's a difference between reacting and responding. One is immediate, emotional, and often reckless. The other is intentional, measured, and rooted in clarity. The best leaders don't let circumstances dictate their behavior. They make a choice. They respond. Imagine you're driving a car on a rainy night. The roads are slick, visibility is low, and suddenly someone swerves in front of you. A reaction is to jerk the wheel instinctively, maybe slam the brakes in a panic. But that quick reaction, driven by fear, could send your car into a skid or cause a crash. A response, however, is different. A response is controlled. It's adjusting the wheel slightly, slowing down just enough to regain control, keeping your focus on the road instead of letting panic take over. That's the difference between reacting and responding. And in leadership, that difference can define everything. Because leaders who react make decisions based on emotion. They get caught up in the heat of the moment, they say things they regret, they blame, they snap at their team, they make rash choices that create more problems than solutions. But leaders who respond take a step back, they pause, they assess the situation, and make decisions based on logic, not impulse. Think about a crisis situation at work. A major deal falls through, a critical mistake is made, or something completely unexpected throws off an entire plan. A reactive leader storms into the room, pointing fingers, demanding answers, letting frustration lead the way. But what does that accomplish? It creates fear. It makes people defensive. It forces people into survival mode rather than problem-solving mode. A responsive leader, on the other hand, approaches the situation differently. They gather information before making a judgment. They ask the right questions. They stay composed because they understand that their energy sets the tone for everyone else. Instead of escalating the chaos, they diffuse it. Because reacting is easy, it's instinctive. But responding, that takes discipline, it takes emotional intelligence. It takes the ability to step outside of your own emotions in the moment and focus on what actually matters. Finding a solution. This is why the best leaders train themselves to slow down before making decisions. In high-stakes environments like the military or emergency response teams, reacting without thinking can be disastrous. Soldiers are taught that hesitation can be fatal, but so can recklessness. The key isn't speed, it's control. The most effective leaders in those fields don't let fear dictate their decisions. They don't allow adrenaline to override judgment. They process information quickly but deliberately, ensuring that every action taken is purposeful. This applies in business, in parenting, in relationships, everywhere. Leadership exists. Think about a heated argument. Someone says something that triggers an emotional reaction. Maybe it's an accusation, a criticism, or something unfair. The instinct is to fire back, to defend, to react in the heat of the moment. But what happens when we do that? More conflict, more tension, more damage to relationships. Now imagine responding instead. Taking a breath, choosing words carefully, asking a clarifying question instead of assuming the worst. Suddenly the conversation shifts. Instead of fueling conflict, it creates understanding. This is why self-awareness is one of the most critical traits of a leader. The ability to recognize when emotion is taking over, when impulse is trying to take control, and to pause, even for just a second, before making a decision. Because responding isn't about ignoring emotions, it's about not being controlled by them. The leaders we respect most aren't the ones who lash out under pressure. They're the ones who stay steady. They don't let frustration lead them. They don't let stress dictate their tone. They don't let fear drive their decisions. Instead, they pause, they think. They choose their next move with purpose. Because reacting is temporary, but responding has lasting impact. People don't perform at their best when they're constantly on edge. They don't think clearly when they're walking on eggshells. They don't innovate when they're afraid of making a mistake. The best leaders understand this. They know that if they want their teams to thrive, they must create a culture of stability. Because stability isn't just about structure. It's not about rules or rigid systems. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe. Safe to think, safe to speak, safe to make decisions without fear of punishment. Think about a house. If the foundation is shaky, the whole structure is vulnerable. It doesn't matter how beautifully it's designed or how much effort goes into decorating the rooms. If the base is unstable, the house will eventually collapse. The same is true for teams, businesses, and organizations. A leader's job is to make sure the foundation is solid, and that foundation is trust. Stability begins with trust. When people trust their leader, they don't waste energy second-guessing every decision. They don't hold back ideas out of fear. They don't spend their days wondering if they'll still have a place on the team tomorrow. Instead, they focus on doing their best work. But trust isn't built through words, it's built through consistency. A leader who is unpredictable, who changes their expectations from day to day, who reacts emotionally instead of responding thoughtfully, creates instability. And instability breeds anxiety. The best leaders are steady. They don't let external pressures dictate their leadership. They don't make their team feel like they're constantly on the verge of crisis. Instead, they provide a sense of certainty, not in the outcomes, but in their leadership. People may not always know what's coming next, but they know their leader will remain calm, rational, and fair. Emotional stability is leadership stability. A leader's emotions set the tone for everyone else. When a leader is erratic, one day excited and enthusiastic, the next day frustrated and short-tempered, people don't know what to expect. They become hesitant, they hold back. But when a leader's emotionally stable, their team feels secure. This doesn't mean leaders can't have bad days. It doesn't mean they have to suppress emotions or pretend everything is fine when it's not. It means they take responsibility for the energy they bring into a room. It means they don't unload stress onto their team. They manage their emotions in a way that doesn't create unnecessary chaos, because when leaders are composed, their teams are composed. When leaders stay clear-headed, their teams stay focused. When leaders model resilience, their teams build resilience. Clarity creates stability. Uncertainty breeds stress, and while no leader can predict the future, they can remove unnecessary ambiguity. One of the fastest ways to create instability is to be unclear about expectations. People shouldn't have to guess what success looks like. They shouldn't have to decode vague instructions or try to read between the lines. A leader who communicates clearly, who sets clear priorities, who defines success, who provides regular feedback, removes unnecessary stress, because people don't fear hard work, they fear uncertainty. When a leader provides clarity, they remove doubt. And when doubt is removed, people move forward with confidence. Stability encourages risk-taking. Ironically, the safest environments are the ones where people feel free to take risks. When leaders create stability, they create a culture where people aren't afraid to try new things. They aren't afraid to speak up in meetings. They aren't afraid to fail because they know failure isn't met with punishment, it's met with learning. But when a workplace feels unstable, when people fear harsh criticism, when mistakes are met with blame instead of solutions, they play it safe. They take fewer chances. They stop thinking creatively. And when creativity dies, growth dies with it. Great leaders make it clear you won't be punished for taking smart risks. They build teams that aren't afraid to experiment, to innovate, to push boundaries. And that only happens when the environment is one of stability, not fear. Leading with stability in unstable times. No leader can control everything. Markets crash, projects fail, unexpected crises happen, the world is unpredictable. But even in uncertainty, leaders can provide stability through their presence. Because leadership isn't about preventing problems, it's about guiding people through them. It's about being the steady hand when everything else feels unsteady. It's about creating a culture where people feel grounded even when the world around them is shifting. And when leaders do that, when they build an environment of trust, emotional stability, clarity, and encouragement, people don't just survive challenges, they rise above them. Leadership isn't about titles, power, or authority. It's about influence. It's about the energy you bring, the example you set, and the culture you create. Calm is contagious. The way you handle pressure doesn't just affect you, it shapes the mindset of those around you. Pressure reveals leadership, stripping away the surface to show who truly stands strong in difficult moments. And in those moments, the difference between reacting and responding can determine whether a team spirals into chaos or moves forward with confidence. Great leaders don't just chase short-term wins, they build environments where people can thrive. They create a culture of stability, not by removing challenges, but by ensuring that their people feel supported, trusted, and empowered to take risks. They know that their presence sets the tone. Their emotional discipline becomes the foundation for others to follow. Because leadership isn't about controlling every situation. It's about being the steady force that others can rely on no matter what happens.